You scroll past another viral clip while your coffee cools beside you. You notice the same shoes everywhere, yet yours stay comfortably familiar. You hear coworkers repeat phrases you never bothered to learn. Somehow, you feel slightly out of step with the current moment. Not loudly different, just quietly unsynchronized with what everyone celebrates. People don't accuse you directly, but their curiosity lingers and pauses. They wonder why you didn't try it, why you didn't join when everyone else seemed excited. But here's the twist. What looks like disinterest often hides a deeper psychological orientation. What seems passive can actually be a form of selective attention. Not everyone experiences novelty as progress. Studies suggest nearly 30% of adults resist trends instinctively. They don't announce it, and they rarely defend it publicly. Few conversations explore what shapes this inner distance. Long-term orientation over temporal novelty. People often assume you avoid trends because you fear change or uncertainty. The explanation sounds simple, efficient, and socially convenient. If you cared more, you would participate like everyone else. But consider another possibility. What if your mind weighs time differently than theirs? Psychologists describe this as temporal orientation, paired with delayed gratification. Your attention naturally stretches forward, beyond the immediate emotional payoff. Short-term excitement feels incomplete without a longer narrative attached. You notice how trends peak quickly, then quietly dissolve without consequence. You imagine the effort, adjustment, and emotional buy-in they require. Then you imagine how little remains once attention moves elsewhere. This doesn't mean novelty never attracts you. It means novelty alone rarely justifies psychological investment. Your brain seeks continuity, not stimulation for its own sake. For some people, this orientation develops through experience. For others, it forms early, without a clear origin. Either way, the question lingers quietly in you. Will this still matter after the moment passes? Anticipated regret and conservative decision-making. From the outside, your hesitation can look like indecision or overthinking. People assume you wait because you lack confidence. They rarely consider the emotional math happening internally. You instinctively imagine how participation might feel afterward. Not the excitement, but the aftertaste once novelty fades. This is anticipated regret, paired closely with risk aversion. You replay scenarios where enthusiasm turns into quiet self-criticism. Moments where you ask why you followed something that never felt aligned. That imagined regret weighs more than potential social reward. So you choose psychological safety over collective momentum. Not because you fear judgment, but because you dislike self-betrayal. You prefer the discomfort of missing out to the discomfort of forcing fit. This pattern doesn't mean you never take risks. It means your risks need personal justification, not social proof, and that threshold varies widely between individuals. How much regret are you willing to carry just to belong briefly? Identity stability independent of external validation. Many trends promise something subtle beyond enjoyment. They offer belonging, recognition, and a shared emotional language. For some, identity flexes easily around these offers. Your sense of self moves differently. Psychologists call this self-concept clarity, guided by internal evaluation. You don't need constant external confirmation to feel coherent. When trends arrive, they don't threaten you. They simply fail to add necessary information about who you are. Your identity already feels internally narrated. You don't reject validation entirely. You just don't outsource self-definition to collective excitement. Approval feels pleasant, but not structurally important. This stability can look like detachment to others. They may mistake consistency for rigidity or emotional distance, yet internally, you experience calm continuity. Still, stability raises its own quiet question. How much of you remains unseen when you stop signaling alignment? Psychological distance from social imitation. Social life quietly rewards imitation more than originality. Matching behaviors reduce friction and signal safety to the group. Most people adapt automatically, without conscious negotiation. You notice that pull, but you stand slightly outside it. Psychologists call this space social conformity pressure, driven by normative influence. It asks you to mirror others to preserve social harmony. Yet something in you pauses before copying. You sense how imitation can blur personal boundaries over time. Small adjustments accumulate into patterns you never consciously chose. So you maintain psychological distance, not physical isolation. You still engage, listen, and participate in conversations. You simply resist automatic behavioral synchronization. This distance isn't rebellion or superiority. It's a buffer between observation and action, a moment where choice remains possible. Not everyone needs that buffer, but you seem wired to notice when it disappears. How close is too close before imitation stops feeling voluntary? Value-based filtering of cultural signals. Trends arrive packaged as culture, but you read them as signals. Each one carries assumptions about taste, priorities, and meaning. You instinctively filter before absorbing. Psychologists describe this through value congruence and motivated reasoning. Your mind checks alignment before granting emotional permission. Popularity alone doesn't bypass that filter. You ask quiet questions others skip. Does this reflect something I respect? Does it reinforce values I already live by? When the answer feels unclear, you disengage gently. Not with criticism, but with selective attention. You conserve energy for signals that resonate deeper. This doesn't make your choices morally superior, it simply makes them internally consistent. Consistency matters more to you than cultural fluency. Still, filtering comes with trade-offs. Some shared moments pass without touching you. Which connections require shared values, and which only shared timing? Meaning construction. Beyond collective cycles. Trends operate in cycles of attention. They rise, peak, and fade with predictable rhythm, meaning within them is often temporary. You seem oriented toward something less replaceable. Psychologists describe this as existential meaning-making through narrative identity. You want experiences to integrate, not just entertain. You notice how collective cycles reset too quickly. Yesterday's obsession becomes today's embarrassment. That instability weakens their symbolic weight for you, so you search for meaning that survives context changes. Stories that still make sense years later. Choices that feel coherent across different versions of yourself. This doesn't mean you reject collective joy. It means you hesitate to anchor identity to fleeting symbols. You prefer slower, quieter forms of significance. But meaning without shared reference can feel solitary. It asks patience from both you and others. What kind of story are you willing to live inside long-term? Some people move with cultural waves, others watch their patterns. Neither position guarantees fulfillment or isolation. They simply reveal different relationships with time, identity, and meaning. Modern culture often frames trend participation as openness. Non-participation gets mislabeled as resistance or detachment. This narrative leaves little room for psychological nuance. But coherence matters as much as connection, and alignment can exist without synchronization. Not everything meaningful needs an audience. When attention becomes currency, opting out looks suspicious. Yet silence can also be a form of authorship. You choose which stories get written into you. Beyond trends, the deeper question remains, are you living reactively or narratively? If this way of thinking resonates, consider staying with the channel, not for answers, but for better questions.